can we just go through, I know this is not like patentable, this is not your business, but what are some of the obvious things a person can do to strengthen his immune system?
So you ask, what activates the natural killer cell? So
yes.
It's like, when you look at the leaf and you talk about apoptosis, and the leaf actually sits and goes brown and it changes, but then it goes back up. So all of human nature, all of nature is filled with this biology of this balance. So you're a product of nature. I mean, literally you're a product of when you were a tadpole and a fish as we came out. So this cell is evolved since the Cambrian age. Think about that. This natural killer cell in your body. I published my first article in Natural Killer Cell in 1990. This cell was only discovered in the 1970s. Think about that. And we've ignored that cell. This is what I call the missing link. I'm going to announce that at the American Urology Conference in Las Vegas in the end of this month. We have discovered, I've not discovered the missing link, we've discovered the awareness of this missing link and how to activate this missing link. So the idea is to activate the natural killer cell. It has 30,000 receptors on this cell. What this natural killer cell does, it replenishes itself with sleep. So sleep is important. It replenishes itself with light, with sunlight. And I believe there's a certain wavelength, the red wavelength in the sunlight, that it actually requires for it to be stimulated. So
this is why people get sicker in the winter.
Exactly. That's why Seattle has the highest suicide rate. Think about that, right? So these things, and if you look at the places like Norway and Sweden where there's very little sun, Finland. So nature's all about light, sunlight. So that's why I think this is...
I like obvious observation. Nature's all about sunlight, of course. Plants don't grow without sunlight.
Right.
Everything grows with sunlight. So this just came out last night. 2 hours long. I already watched it twice. I usually watch everything at 2x, but that's how I plow through so much content to prepare me for things. You guys really need to give this a watch. This is a fascinating interview. Essentially, this doctor espouses that not only has he discovered something that can prevent you from getting cancer. So again, this is even more than just a cure, right? What he's espousing, that he's been developing for the past, I think, a decade or so, more than that. But also that if you have cancer, certain types of cancer, from what I've been listening to, it can get rid of it. He gets into the COVID part, stating that he was developing this thing as a he doesn't call it a vaccine. And the reason why he doesn't call it a vaccine is because it's not the stereotypical vaccine that produces antibodies. It's nothing like that. I believe he calls it a bioshield. And so essentially what he's saying that it's doing is that it's allowing the body to activate what they were talking about, these killer cells, the cells that will destroy viruses or anything that is in the body that is invasive. And essentially what he's saying is that that's something that we've never really tried to do. We always try to inhibit the virus from replicating, or whether it be through antibodies or things of that nature. But he's essentially saying that there are mechanisms within our body that, if activated properly, if alerted to an issue properly, can eradicate pretty much anything. Anything that is invasive. And again, I just kind of dropped the needle on this thing and just kind of let it rip a little bit. But it is a fascinating interview, especially if you know someone in your life that is going through anything similar, or if you have relatives or family members or friends or whoever that is susceptible possibly to cancer. He gets into that also, that there are individuals with certain markers that they can detect that have just a massive increase in the potential for developing cancer. He does talk about a very sad story where he had a child, 13-year-old boy, I believe, with prostate cancer, and the child didn't make it. And he was just stunned that, someone that young would have a cancer of that type. So let's see what else they got here, and then we'll keep it going.
And at the end of the day, we either about neutrons, photons, and electrons. That's what we are. We as a human being is nothing else but a battery and ingate. When you think about that, right? So we have a bunch of electrons and neutrons and charges that's floating through us that actually interact. And that's how I think of the human body. That's what I said. I think of it as an astrophysicist. It's crazy, but that's how my mind works.
So sleep, getting sunlight,
and having food that doesn't immunosuppress your biome. The bacteria in your body sends out materials that actually will immunosuppress or activate.
What are the immunosuppressive foods?
Unfortunately, I think most natural foods are fine. It's the toxins in the food. Exactly what I said, the excipients. So when we talk about red dye, the processed foods, all this unnatural processed stuff ultimately cause inflammation. Now, when it gets back to this plasticity of inflammation causes immunosuppression because it causes all these cells to flip from the killer state to the suppressor state. That's why we said we have this dichotomy of is the cat alive, is the cat dead?
You see it too in the elderly. It's why an infection or a diabetic foot infection can lead to a systemic infection and kill the person.
Correct.
Right.
That's why, when this guy discovered that H. pylori causes gastric ulcer, they said, you're nuts. It's acid.
I remember that so well. So
now when you think about that, so that's what I'm saying, this dogma.
But that's a consensus now, right? Acid does not cause ulcers.
Well, it's the cause and effect. So H. pylori causes the inflammation, and then the acid that's naturally in your stomach activates it.
But it's not the core cause.
Correct. But it's all about dogma. That's why I call this a vaccine, but it's a bioshield. So you have to fight dogma. Part of the problem is you're fighting. So I will ask you, I wanted to ask us to do an experiment.
I'm all for it.
Where we pick up the phone, call any random oncologist, not to shame them, primary care physician, pick up the phone and said, you do a CBC, correct? Yes.
Can you define what a CBC is?
A complete blood count. Just so you take a blood and you look for...
Yeah, the blood screen that everyone
Blood
gets.
screen.
Yeah.
For whether you're anemic or not anemic.
Yeah.
People understand that, right? Red blood cells. You see these red blood cells. And you give chemotherapy and radiation. And you ask, what do you look for? Well, we look to see if you're anemic. So we can give you this drug that Amgen makes called Epogen. We look to see whether your platelets have gone down, so we can give you a platelet transfusion. We look to see whether your neutrophils have gone down so that you don't get an infection called neutropenic fever, so we give you this drug, Epogen. Well, the problem is, does red blood cells cure cancer? No. Does platelets cure cancer? No. Does neutrophils kill cancer? No. What kills cancer? The natural killer cells and T cells. So in that CBC, there's a thing called the lymphocytes, correct? Do you look at that? No. The only cell that is important that kills cancer, 99.9% of oncologists will say, we don't pay any attention to that.
Yeah, it's an absolutely fascinating interview. Take a look at it. I mean, if you're here, you're probably looked at it already. But yeah, it's interesting. And again, I think he was talking earlier about that he was developing this for COVID during the time of warp speed, and he was shut out of the program by some of the people from I believe it was FDA or CDC. I'm not sure which. But he is a very liberal guy. He lives in California, and it's just great that I think that people on the right now, it's an umbrella, right? Everyone can come in, everyone can join. We don't really care, what your overall ideas are. If you have something that's good, if you have something that we can utilize and adopt, we're going to do that. And that's kind of what you see, especially with Trump's cabinet, and you see all the different people that he has working in and around him. A lot of them were Democrats. A lot of them were of the left, if you want to call them that. And, we're the right is the umbrella right now. The right is the party. That's where everyone's hanging out. Everyone's invited. Just, stay away from kids stuff, no. And you could be part of the club. Guys, thanks a lot for coming out. Give me a like, give me a share, give me a subscribe. If you haven't checked this out, check it out. I know it's a long road. If you want to do 1.5, if you're not used to the 2x, I'm already used to the 2x, and that's how I get everything done. But thanks for coming out, and we'll see you again real soon. Thank you.